Good evening, honoured guests, headmasters, current and past, staff members, and, with all due respect to those mentioned, most importantly, my fellow old boys. Firstly, I would like to offer both my thanks and congratulations to those in attendance at this, the Wynberg Old Boys Union's first digital dinner. 179 years ago, Wynberg men may have convened in a cottage beneath a mountain. Now, in 2020, it appears to be in a Zoom webinar. In announcing this very strange digital address, we had personal and heartfelt reactions from Wynberg legends and old boys across the years, from former Headmaster Keith Richardson to Jaime Kaplan, matric 1973, cadet band legend Mel Fourie, and to Neil van der Spey, a 1953 matric. Neil, I stand to be corrected, but I believe the honour of being the oldest old boy in attendance tonight belongs to you. I shudder to think how many sons, daughters, friends and family were called upon to assist some of our older old boys in signing up for a Zoom webinar. To our, thanks Jan, to our younger old boys, Dylan Sabunda and the class of 19, we welcome you to this, your first union dinner. I promise you an entertaining evening, and that having taken a break and switching to Zoom, you'll be able to return to TikTok and Instagram shortly. Sorry, I have a note here to pause for rapturous laughter. Again, thanks, Jan. Thank you all for making this special effort. Tonight, in years gone by, would have been the culmination of Heritage Week, a Wynberg night, and the single most important evening in the Old Boys calendar. We cannot allow tonight, with all its ceremony and tradition, to pass without occasion. On that note, men of Wynberg, please join us in the singing of our school song.
In a cottage neath the mountain was a seed of Wynberg sown, as an acorn to an oak tree, Wynberg school has proudly grown. Firm its roots and broad its branches, best of schools it stands alone. Supera Moras, this is the cry of Wynberg sons. We join now with those before us. Supera Moras makes us one. From the shelter of its branches, year by year go forth again. All the years of its tradition, brothers in an endless chain. Joined by pride and linked by honor, Wynberg boys they all remain. Supera Moras, this is the cry of Wynberg sons. We join now with those before us. Supera Moras makes us one.
Men of Wynberg, in keeping with past traditions, we now take time to pause and remember our fallen brothers, old boys lost but never forgotten. After reading our brothers' names, a moment of silence will be observed. Jan van Dam, 1959. Howard Spiro, 1960. Alistair Kruger, 2004. Ian Rubin, 1953. Leon Green, 1967. Wolf Udelman, 1939. Norman Culvert, 1962. Warren Oldroyd, 1985. Roger Withers, 1988. Donald Cray, 1963. Tiny Holton, 1948. Ryle Hochvolden, 1977. Keith Ryan, 1975. Chris Walker, 1963. Graham Lashbrook, Associate Member. Eric Henkel, 1953. Jeff Sloan, 1967. Braden Cantnu, 2016. I pause to mention the profound sadness that is felt by the Wynberg community as we come to grips with the passing of Brandon, a young man, a 26 matric, who died tragically yet heroically while standing up for his colleagues. Your character, strength, and bravery will be sorely missed. If you would all join us now for a moment of silence as we remember our fallen Wynberg brothers. Thank you. This then concludes our formalities for the evening. As I stand here on a professionally lit stage in front of a camera crew in an empty Clegg Hall, which is freezing by the way, and broadcasting live on a Zoom webinar, I can't help but think what a difference a year makes. This time last year we welcomed more than 500 Old Boys, associate members and staff to our annual dinner. If you had told me then, on that evening, that in the months that would follow, a Chinese-born supervirus would make its way across the globe, a pandemic not felt since the 1918 Spanish flu, that our government would impose a lockdown that would devastate our economy and rip the very fabric of our society, that older and more vulnerable members of our community would be told to stay at home, that we would all be taught and retaught how to wash our hands, and that I would be forced to walk into my school wearing a face cloth, I would have said that you are mad, or perhaps, at the very least, that you'd overindulged in some of Ardie Badenhorst's finest secateurs wines. This time last year, I stood before you celebrating a famous 28-0 drubbing of the Sax First 15 that we all had the pleasure of watching in the Hawthorne Den. I suppose, as you're only as good as your most recent result, we can celebrate that one again. But no, this year, we find ourselves in the strangest of times. As I wrote in our August newsletter, while we may lament the burden and difficulty thrust upon us by living in the time of coronavirus, we take great confidence in our school and our union's ability to endure in spite of the challenges that we have faced. 179 years of adversity, war, change, revolution, and toil have failed to break the spirit, faith, and resolve of Wynberg men. The coronavirus is but the latest in a series of challenges which we will overcome. Having observed Jan de Waal and Cedric Poleman, the school staff, executive, and the work of Andries Burton and the governing bodies as they go about their business, making necessary adjustments, finding innovative solutions, and enabling our boys to continue to receive a world-class education, I'm reminded of how resilient our schools are. I'm reminded of just how special our Wynberg community is. Long may it continue. On that note, it gives me great pleasure in introducing Cedric Poleman, the headmaster of the junior school, and Jan de Waal of the high school. Cedric, if you would.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Good evening, everybody. Last year, I missed this occasion through my wife taking ill, and I'm pleased to inform that she's in good health. And when she asked me before I left this evening, is this the event you normally go to in Johannesburg? I said, no, this is the dinner that we normally have at Wynberg Boys Eye, and we normally have played sax this week, as Matthew had said, and she couldn't believe that we were at this point of the year already. Last year we missed the dinner in Johannesburg as well, Jan, but this year everybody can join us in this format, and I'm sure that there are some old boys all over the world and some of our friends in Johannesburg who have joined for this one. It's my 6th year as headmaster of Wynberg Boys Junior School, and it seems like the format for this dinner has changed on every occasion that I've attended it. From the gala, very formal event for our 175th with chandeliers and very fancy glasses in this hall, to the more informal, more inclusive celebration of the past 2 years, which was very well received by many of our younger old boys. We now are in a situation where we're forced to adapt to a pandemic, and I deliver a speech in an empty hall for the first time under any circumstance. When speaking to Matthew yesterday, he said many old boys look forward to the opportunity just to hear about the schools and catch up on Wynberg and the events that have taken place from August last year to August this year. Let me tell you, it's been a absolutely amazing, fascinating, grueling 12 months that we have experienced, and I would not wish to be working in any other community at this time, particularly with the pandemic that is upon us. For me, this pandemic has served to prove once again that in adversity, Wynberg will rise to the top and we will be our absolute best. I'm pleased to be in a leadership role in a community that has demonstrated empathy, compassion, resilience, and an attitude of wanting to make things work despite the difficult circumstances that we all find ourselves in. On the previous occasions, I've spoken at Wynberg Old Boys Dinners. I've spoken about the junior school, putting plans into place, looking at our vision, aligning our values to ensure that our boys are always central to everything that we do and that we deliver the absolute best for them. Wynberg Boys Junior School is an institution of excellence, and we want to deliver excellence in every sphere of what we do, and at all times we deliver the best for all the boys who attend the school. On the academic front, we continue to innovate using dynamic teaching methods and introducing more and more technology and digital platforms to enhance curriculum delivery. This has been put to good use by our amazing staff who continue to teach since the lockdown started in March, and we've ensured that our boys have remained engaged and stayed connected to the school even though they were not physically there. This year, our sports program has been a curtailed one, but rest assured the structures that we have in place are such that it ensures quality input appropriate to the development of all boys at their particular age groups. The mainstays of our sporting program remains rugby, hockey, cricket, and water polo has grown massively over the past few years. Swimming, tennis, squash. We have, along with other boys' schools in the area, introduced the sustainable soccer program as well, which we all are very proud of and looking forward to developing. Our culture program continues to flourish with many boys participating in bands, orchestras, choirs, and a substantial number of our boys take individual music instrument lessons. Wynberg Boys remains an extremely well-run school. I have an amazing management team and an extremely talented group of teachers. Our school governance structures are solid, and this has enabled us to drive forward the vision and enhance many aspects of the school. Those of you who've not been to Wynberg Boys Junior School in a year or so will be taken aback, I'd say, by the developments that have occurred. Last year, we installed a water polo pool and developed an aquatic center, adding a lap pool as well. The Jan Oosthuizen Pavilion has been completely revamped to the point that it's almost unrecognizable, and a facility that we can all be proud of. Generally, around the school, things have been enhanced in such a way that it represents excellence. A major development last year was that the Boys Junior School were able to acquire Glebe Cottage, the original building, the one that Matthew spoke of earlier, the cottage neath the mountain, in which Wynberg originally started in. It had been in private ownership for more than 50 years, and it came onto the market. Our governing body, on which 5 old boys serve, felt that this was an opportunity that we could not allow to slip through our fingers, and we made an offer on the property, which we are now the proud owners of. Currently, the thatch roof is being replaced and some renovations will happen shortly. If any of you are ever in the area, this is an open invitation to come and have a look at this magnificent building. You know where the junior school is. Come and find me and I'll happily give you a tour of it. I'm proud to say that I lead one of the most transformed and diverse schools in South Africa, and we remain successful and we continue to grow. This is due to solid foundations and the will to deal with all issues transparently and inclusively. At Wynberg, we don't fear transformation and change. We embrace it as part of a journey and of constantly striving to deliver excellence in the best interests of all that we serve. I thank you for listening. Supera Moras, and please create the opportunity to come and visit and see our magnificent school. You will be proud of it. I've prepared a little video which we'd just like you to have a look at this time. Thank you very much for listening.
To everybody out there. I must say this is a very, very unusual circumstance. Normally when I'm standing here at this podium, I've got this hall filled with 900 boys, and this is a very, very unusual circumstance for me, but that's the way things are at the moment. And welcome, and I'm very proud to give you the Wynberg Boys High School report for the year. Last year, when I was standing here, we were, as Matt referred to earlier, we were all euphoric. We'd had a wonderful 28-0 victory against Sax in the rugby. Our hockey had done extremely well to draw with a very, very powerful Sax side. And we were very, very positive about our matric group and our whole school that had been generally going in a positive direction towards achieving greater results and better results as we went on through the year. And I'm very pleased to say that our matric group continued on that upward trajectory throughout the year, and we ended off at the end of the year with very, very good matric results. And I think for the first time, as far as I can remember, in our South District, which is the district in which we fall, the Western Cape Education Department, 6 of the top 10 students were from Wynberg Boys High School. And, you know, from an academic point of view, that was a huge, kudos for us from our academic program. Unfortunately, also, as we went into the second half of the year, the whole issue of gender-based violence once again came up, and schools such as Wynberg once again were obviously under the spotlight as far as that whole aspect was concerned. I'm very pleased to say that although our matrics were not very involved because they were already preparing for their final matric final matric exams, our grade 11 leadership group embraced the entire challenge, and they did a magnificent job in addressing the issue, making inroads into talking and having conversations with our local girls' schools, and they really did a fantastic job. And I'm very pleased to say that they actually continued that into this year, and they've done a really good job of addressing the issues and stating where Wynberg stands as far as gender-based violence is concerned. Of course, one of the tragedies of the whole 2020 situation is that our grade 12s, our matrics, have not had the opportunity of shining and showing what they are capable of as a group. And we really have a very, very talented grade 12 group. And for me, I feel that's a real tragedy for them. And then also, of course, our grade 8s have come in who have had realistically only about 3 months of high school experience at this stage. And as far as we know, as far as we're concerned, to have that for them is a real tragedy. They need to be involved. They need to be at school. They need to be learning from their mentors, their buddies, and that unfortunately has not happened, and that has been a bit of a tragedy. Then, as far as 2020 is concerned, obviously our first term we had a very good normal Wynberg term, and then obviously the COVID-19 tragedy struck us, and we couldn't have schools and our normal sort of schooling as we would have it. And that has been a tragedy for all our boys, but particularly for our grade 12s and for our grade 8s. But I'm very pleased to say that we have risen to the challenge. Luckily, Wynberg Boys High School, as the junior schoolies as well, we are very much technologically up to date as far as we are concerned, and we have been able to deliver lessons to our students, and that has gone off extremely well. And I'm very pleased to say that at this particular point we are in fact ahead of where we would have been normally as far as the academic curriculum is concerned. So we are not particularly worried about the academic side of the school, but of course the whole spiritual, emotional and pastoral side of the school is something which we are particularly worried about, and we want to have our boys back. We want to have them back at school so that we can deliver the product that we promise people. Pastoral care and care of our boys as far as their emotional development is concerned is our most important aspect, and the whole academic side is actually almost a sideshow, although we want to say that academics does remain important, but our boys really need to be back at school. Then as far as predictions go for the future, are we going to be able to return to normal schooling next year? I'm not 100% sure whether we are, but we are certainly hoping that we can have a normal year next year. Then, as far as the whole story regarding the schooling and academic thing is one aspect, but of course finances are a difficult issue, and I'm very pleased to say that as far as the gathering of school funds is concerned, that Wynberg Boys High School has adequate reserves, so that if we are not able to gather in enough funds for the future, we are at least able to continue through to next year. We have adequate reserves so that we do not have to lay off teachers or lay off staff. So I'm very pleased to say that that is not an issue as far as we're concerned. Regarding developments at the school, obviously our entire situation with the COVID pandemic has changed, but we are able to continue with our capital developments. Something which Cedric would have mentioned earlier is the 4 schools have cooperated a lot better with each other than they have in the past, and we have made an offer on a property which those of you who follow the hockey will know that parking and everything around the Astro on Friday evening is quite a difficult issue. And you'll also know that there's that vacant property opposite the Astro on Cavan Road, and the 4 schools have put in an offer. We've tendered for taking over control of that property, which we will use for parking, and I think that will alleviate matters going forward as far as that's concerned. And then obviously, as far as Wynberg Boys High School is concerned, our major program for the year has been the engineering and design faculty, which is behind me over here. And that is a 20-odd million project. And we have launched a Fund a Brick campaign. And I appeal to all Wynberg Old Boys to support that. At the moment, it's been going for about 4 days, and we have accumulated over 100,000 rand already, and I'm looking to get at least 20 times of that. So if the old boys can support that program, there will be a video about it right after this address. If you can support that program, we ask you please to do so. So all the best for the year ahead. We know it's going to be a very difficult year for everybody, but as you know, Wynberg will persist and we will overcome whatever we are faced at the moment. So thank you very much.
We are gathered here at the Engineering and Design Faculty at Wynberg Boys, and today I'm going to introduce you to the Fund a Brick campaign, which we would like to invite the entire Wynberg family to be part of. The entire faculty cost is around about 32 million rand, and to date we have raised just over 21 million rand. That is in cash donations and also in product and in services. Typically these donations have been large donations varying from 50,000 rand to 5 million rand. But this Fund a Brick campaign is going to be an opportunity for everybody, whether you've got 25 rand to donate or 200 rand or a few thousand rand. This is going to be your opportunity to be part of this legacy and also to contribute to education at Wynberg Boys, but also in South Africa. We'd just like to introduce you to members of the Wynberg family who are here and are going to help us drive the project and have been involved in the project from the very beginning. We have Georgie Wallstrom, who is a Wynberg parent, and she's been very involved in the technical steering committee. She's got an architectural background and she's been very, very useful and helped us. So she's representing the Wynberg parents. Greg Scott is also a Wynberg old boy. He is an architect, and he is in fact the architect who designed the entire project. Dylan Sabanda, who was the head boy in 2019, and Dylan was very involved in the public relations part of the engineering and design faculty. Adrian Gosnett from Wynberg Old Boy. He is currently on the Wynberg Old Boys committee, and Adrian is going to drive this entire project with the Old Boys. below, our head boy for this year, and he's obviously representing all the current Wynberg students.
So hi, I'm Greg Scott as architect for this project. I just wanted to say I think this Fund a Brick campaign is an amazing opportunity for everybody to leave a piece of themselves at the school, to revisit later and see what it's become. I remember being 12, 13 years old, coming to the school in Standard 6, and for Arbor Day we planted trees on top of the main rugby field, and every time I come back I go and see that tree, see it grow, see it develop, and it's actually been a really amazing part of a legacy that you share with the school. And in this way, I think it's an incredible opportunity for everybody to put a piece of themselves into the school that they can come and visit for years and years and years in the future, across generations. So what we're saying to everybody, buy a brick, buy 1, buy 10, buy 100, buy 1,000, but leave a few bricks for the future.
Hi, I'm Georgie Borgstrom. I'm on the school's governing body, and as a parent, being involved in the school is incredibly important to me. So I recommend all parents, whoever they are, can try and just help us to make this most amazing building true.
Hi, my name is Dylan Sibanda, and I was the head boy in 2019. I was involved with this project from the beginning, and it's very exciting to see how it's growing and progressing. Now it's exciting to think of the possibilities that it offers the boys at the school, and it's because of this that I have decided to donate 20 bricks, and I urge all those who can, past matrics and past students of Wynberg, to donate as well.
Hi, my name is Adrian Goslet. I'm on the Wynberg Old Boys Committee, and it's exciting to see what's happening here at the school. I want to encourage all Wynberg Old Boys to get behind this initiative to raise some money. It's the one thing that we're going to get behind in 2020, to raise some money, and the way that you can do that, guys, is to sponsor some bricks. 4 bricks only is going to cost you $100, and I know there's a lot more of you out there that can afford to put a lot more behind this initiative. It's going to be exciting to see what happens in this space right here, and you could be a part of that. So look forward to seeing some contributions coming in from your side, and let's get behind this. Let's build Wynberg into the best school in the country. In fact, it already is. Catch you all soon.
An anonymous donor has generously donated 1,100 bricks towards this project. One for every Wynberg boy and staff member attending the school in the current year of 2020. This means that everybody's name will be mentioned on the donors board inside the building once the project is complete. With the unfortunate circumstance that COVID-19 has presented us with, we haven't had an opportunity to fundraise this year, meaning that this is our first opportunity to fundraise. I encourage every Wynberg family to donate towards their child's education, their future, and the future of the school.
I'm left without the introduction that I was hoping for, but I would just like to explain just how easy it is to donate to the EDF Fund a Brick campaign. I have here on my phone a SnapScan payment loaded up. Mike Tabiner will ensure that the donate and the engineering facility information page is loaded to this webinar. And Jan, congratulations, you are, just a moment, 40 bricks richer. Thank you very much. I would challenge all old boys out there to make a donation to contribute to the EDF fund. It really is an opportunity to give back to your school and to create something for you to come back to in years to come. Now, as we jump ahead slightly in the program, I move to introduce our guest speaker for the evening. And as we try to navigate the crisis at hand, and to make sense of the social and economic effects of COVID-19, I can think of few better men to address us this evening than our guest speaker. As a decorated sportsman displaying scintillating form on Wynberg's cricket and rugby fields, he went on to practice as a head coach, assistant coach, strength and conditioning coach across the cricketing world. He has worked with cricket teams in the Indian Premier League, the Australian Big Bash League, the Pakistan Super League, and the Indian and South African national teams. He holds master's degrees in sports science from UCT and business coaching from Middlesex University. He is a professor of practice at Deakin University. In recent years, he authored and co-authored various publications, culminating in his very own best-selling The Barefoot Coach, which I encourage you all to go and read. As an executive and mentor coach and renowned guest speaker, he has wowed audiences and inspired the hearts and minds of athletes, entrepreneurs, and professionals in both South Africa and abroad. As he himself notes, this is all to support his surfing and fishing habits. Again, pause for rapturous laughter. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Wynberg Old Boy, Matric 1986, Paddy Upton.
Thank you very much for that intro, and good evening, everybody. I've done quite a few Zoom calls over the last couple of months, and honest to goodness, this is the first time I've done one with a proper pair of pants and shoes on. So that's actually quite an interesting thing to do. I had to go into the cupboard and find my pants that have been there for 6 months. As we've navigated through this time, what I'd like to do is share some of my thinking that went through my head probably a month into this, where we really didn't know where it was going to go. I personally had been through a situation where the business I had recently been building, specifically around moving away from cricket and working in the corporate space in talks, workshops, seminars, particularly around the people side of performance. My really full diary went from full to completely empty in the space of 1 week. In fact, the only thing that remained for the rest of the year in my diary when lockdown started was just my friends' birthdays. I also unfortunately we had some deaths in the family. So I personally, like a lot of people, was not in a great space. And I'd like to share with you the thinking particularly that helped me turn the corner and really get back onto effectively the A game. And like any Wynberg and most Wynberg people, we figure out a way to make a plan. And what I looked at was, however it looks like when we come out of this period of time and whenever we come out, what we do know is there's going to be a few people who come out thriving, who really make the most of the opportunities and find the opportunities. And so there's going to be a few people at the front of the queue, and there's going to be a few businesses there and a few industries. So we know there's going to be a whole lot of people who thrive. There's probably going to be more of a majority people are going to be surviving. They're going to be bumbling through. They're going to be waiting to come out of this. They're going to be hoping, maybe caught up in anxiety that's just going to be a low-level anxiety for a long period of time. And like any bell curve, that's going to be the majority. And there's going to be, unfortunately, some people who, if I use a sporting metaphor, they're going to get relegated. Businesses are going to get lost. People are really going to struggle. And just depending on how long this goes, those people in the middle who just going along and surviving and waiting for things to change or to pass, the longer this goes, the more people that unfortunately might get metaphorically relegated. And the question I asked myself, and the question I ask you, because I don't have the answers necessarily, I have some of them, is those people who emerge at the front of the curve, those organizations that emerge at the front of the curve, those sports teams that come back and get right to the front, what is going to be the difference between them and the rest? What are they going to have got more right than everybody else? And that really was the question that I set out to answer. And because my work and really what I want to do is help as many people as possible move from that survival mode and that middle group to get to the head of the curve. And again, I would like to share some of those things because Wynberg guys, we make a plan and hopefully a lot of us are going to be at the front of that curve. So some of the things that came to me is, number one, as with any sports team, the people that really go on to do well in a season, to do well in a tournament, one of the things they get right is they bring their A game. Now, each one of us, as we sit here today, we have never been more knowledgeable, more experienced, more skilled now at any other point of our lives than what we are now. And these times are extraordinary, so it requires us to bring the absolute best of our knowledge, of our skill, of our experience so far in our lives that we've got, that is going to be the stuff that carries us through this. So number one, we need to bring our A game. Number two, we need to advance. We need to build on. We need to innovate. We need to do something even more than the best we've done previously, even if it's only a 5% tweak in one area. But it does require thinking out the box, letting go of some old stuff and creating some new. And the third thing it's going to take is, and probably more important than anything else, is we're going to need to navigate the distractions and the obstacles to executing on that A game. Most athletes that I've worked with who we go into a World Cup or into an Indian Premier League or to any cricket tournament, all athletes and all teams at the top of the game, they are on their A game. They're exceptionally well prepared. They've practiced well. They've eaten well. They've slept well. They've followed great diets. So they actually arrive with their A game. The thing that differentiates teams that win and don't win is not so much who's got a better A game, but who is able to be less distracted, succumb less to the pressure, succumb less to the fear than the other guys. In fact, we talk about in finals. Finals is not about being the team that does the best. It's actually the team that wins is very often the team who panics the least. And that's what we need to be doing now, is just panicking less than other people, fearing the pressure less than other people, experiencing the fear less than other people. So we need to manage those distractions really well. And I'm going to just share some of the points and stories that I've figured out and designed them and now delivering fairly extensively. So the first piece, and I'll just tell it in terms of an anecdote, is when Gary Kirsten and I joined the Indian cricket team as coaches in 2008, our first assignment was a 3-match test series, India against South Africa in India. There was an opening batsman by the name of Virender Sehwag who was he was in and out of the Indian team. He wasn't a regular, very attacking opening batsman. Some might remember him, but he had a fundamental flaw in his game. And this flaw was the fact that he was a compulsive hooker. No, Wynberg boys, it's not what you're thinking. The cricket compulsive hooker, in that any short, fast pitch ball aimed at his head, he would impulsively hook at the ball, and the opposition knew that. So what they would do, and I don't want to get too technical around cricket here because maybe we're not all a cricket audience, but the opposition, what they would do is they would set a leg side trap, which is someone at deep fine leg and deep square leg, and the opposition would bowl the 2 bounces and over that are allowed in Test cricket. The South African team then in 2008, they had 4 fast bowlers in Dale Steyn, Morne Morkel, Mackay Ntini and Sean Pollock. We knew those 4 guys are going to bowl 2 bounces every single over to Viru with the leg side trap. The conversation Gary had to Sehwag was, Viru, why don't you learn to duck underneath the bouncer? Then your strength is to play on the front foot and attack off the front foot. The fact that they will bowl you 2 bounces means they will have that leg side trap, which is that deep fine leg, deep square leg. They have to take a fielder from somewhere to have that extra fielder there. And it's either going to be from the slips they'll take one of those fielders, or they'll take it from the covers. We know these guys, they want wickets. They will take that fielder from the covers, which means you will have an extra gap in the covers. To his credit, Viru went into the nets and he spent probably 10 hours of that week unlearning his pre-programmed condition to compulsively hook at the bouncer. So the first thing is he undid an old bad habit and he programmed a new habit, which was to duck underneath it and then attack off the front foot. If anyone remembers, or you can check in your Google if you want to check my facts here, but in 2008, the first test match against South Africa versus India in Chennai, Virender Sehwag went out and for the first time in his career, ducked underneath every bouncer. He walked off the field with a personal score of 319 not out. That wasn't a once-off. He became a regular member in the Indian team. He went on at the end of that year to be named the International Test Cricketer of the Year, and he was a regular in the team for the next 8 years. The key piece of this story is the fact that Veeru didn't go into the nets to work on a weakness to try and get better at that. He cut the weakness out of his game, and he spent the majority of his batting time playing to his strengths. One of the things that is most consistent with the best athletes, the best actors, the best businessmen in the world and businesswomen is they do what they're very good at most of the time. They play to their strengths because it's our strengths that underpin and drive our success. And never before, I think, has it been more important going forward from here that we play even more to our strengths than what we did prior to these COVID times. So that is going to be one key ingredient of being on our A game, is playing to our strengths. The next piece, just to illustrate it through two of my favorite stories, well, one of my favorite stories and one that's not so cool. In 2018 in Newlands, a lot of us will remember the Australian team went onto the cricket field as a fielding team. The South African batsmen were getting the better of them, and what the Australians did in the change room during the break is David Warner, a senior player in the Australian team, coerced or bullied a younger player into taking a piece of sandpaper onto the cricket field to sandpaper the ball in order to scuff one side so they could get the ball to reverse swing and potentially gain an advantage from a difficult position. Captain Stephen Smith was sitting in the change room. He observed that happening, and all Stephen Smith did was nothing. He didn't endorse it, but he also didn't stop it. We all know the consequence of the result of that was that those three players were banned for 9 months and 12 months respectively from playing cricket. Cameron Bancroft, the youngster in the team who was just keen to please and do whatever he could to help the team win, he could not say no to a senior player like David Warner. Cameron Bancroft has since then never played Test cricket for Australia. He just hasn't got his place back in the team, and it's unlikely he will ever do that. David Warner, he's banned from holding any position of leadership in Australian cricket ever again. I think anyone who did pick him in a position of leadership in Australian cricket would need their brains read anyway. And Stephen Smith, his punishment was, number one, not playing cricket for a year and not getting being able to be captain for 2 years. In the 1 year that Stephen missed out from cricket, his loss of earnings just from Australian cricket alone was 5 million Australian dollars, which is equivalent of just over 50 million rand he lost. And his crime was not stopping somebody doing the wrong thing. And I think all three of those people, there's a great message in there. It's probably not that relevant to us as Wynberg Old Boys because we're good oaks. But number one, Cameron Bancroft, not to allow yourself to be bullied by someone bigger, stronger, more senior. He didn't have the courage to stand up and say no to David Warner. David Warner, his crime was bullying somebody and using that position. And of course, Stephen Smith's crime was not stopping something wrong happening. Now, the reason that they got to that position and the reason there was such heavy consequence goes back about 4 or 5 years, that Australian team was so successful. And as happens with successful individuals and successful people, practices start creeping in, value systems start creeping in that are really questionable, like the amount of sledging the Australian cricket team was engaging in international cricket. Everybody was saying to them, you guys are stepping over the line, this is not acceptable. But they were doing so well, so they weren't open to receive any criticism and to audit the culture in that team. They had one of the single most important values in that team was win at all costs. That was actually language that Darren Lehman, the coach, should use. Guys, we've got to do everything we can to win. We've got to win at all costs. The reward system was set up to reinforce that. They were paid significantly higher amounts of money for winning a test match compared to drawing or losing. So a very short-term, self-serving value system creeped into that Australian team, and that's what led to that happening and the backlash from that. In comparison, I said one of my favorite stories, and this goes back flipping a long time, the name Bobby Jones, a golfer in the 1920s, was playing in what at the time was the biggest golf tournament in the world, the United States Open of golf. On the finals day, and some of us might know the story, on the finals day of that tournament, Bobby Jones addressed the ball in the rough, and when he put his club down, he caused the ball to move ever so slightly when he addressed it by touching a piece of grass that was touching the ball. He stepped back and he said to the marshal, "I caused this ball to move." The marshal did not see it. That marshal consulted other marshals. They consulted the fans, and it moved so minusculely that nobody other than Bobby Jones saw that ball move. The final ruling from the marshal was to Bobby Jones, "It's up to you because none of us can call a shot on you." And Bobby Jones said, "I know I caused the ball to move. I'm calling a shot on myself." At the end of that day, Bobby Jones lost the US Open by 1 stroke. To this day, the highest award that is offered in golf, to this day, is the Bobby Jones Award for Sportsmanship. 100 years later, Bobby Jones is still remembered for doing the right thing. But it is that tempting, particularly prior to this, we see it enough time in business, we see it enough time in our government, that our values, and they're almost the values that have been rewarded in politics and sport and business, are values that what I would call self-serving values that hanker after power, hanker after status, after money, after materialism, after acknowledgement. All of those values are self-serving. Moving forward from here, more than ever before, our value systems as people, as organizations, as schools are going to be called into question. And the measure is going to be very simple. Does your value system, the rudder of your yacht effectively, that determines the decisions you make, are they to serve you or are they to serve a cause greater than yourself? And I spoke about playing to our strengths. We need to be playing to our strengths more than ever, and we need to be using those strengths to benefit and serve a cause greater than ourselves. No longer is chasing money, chasing status, chasing power, something like that is self-serving. It's going to be called more and more into question, and is going to be less and less valued going forwards. Probably a lovely story of a Wynberg Old Boy that also reinforces this. In 2012 at Newlands Cricket Ground, Jacques Callis was on a tee time, was on a score of 187 in a test match. He had only scored 1 double century in his test career up until that time. I was sitting in the change room next to him when Captain Graham Smith and Coach Gary Curson walked in, and it was the 3rd innings of a test match. And we weren't quite sure at what point should we be declaring the innings. Jacques Callis was part of that senior players' crew, and Graham said to him, "Jacques, what do you think we should do? Do you want to get to your 200, or when do you think we should declare this innings?" And Jacques immediately, without thinking, he said, "Do not consider my score. You declare when the team needs to declare." It was about what the team needed ahead of Jacques. So that's going to be even more important, and I know we all know this, but we need to even fine-tune that. So moving forward, we need to find our A game, harness the best of our skill, the best of our knowledge, the best of our experience. We need to be playing to our strengths. We need to revisit what am I doing this for, and to make sure we're not chasing the false idols that possibly we were chasing yesterday and still too many people are chasing today. And then we need to be aware of how do we overcome the distractions, because there's never been more distractions in the world than what there are at the moment. Those people who get caught up in the fear, reading too much of the doom and gloom, reading too much crap on social media, that is going to create fear, that is going to suck your energy. We need to be looking at things that are going to uplift us, clear our path, and help us move forward, because we need to have that A game. But when we arrive each day and we wake up, we need to be engaging in good habits that move us forwards and upwards, rather than engaging or slipping into, which are so prevalent now, those bad habits that get us to be unhealthy, lazy, stuck on the couch, and just caught in that momentum of mediocrity, of that survival mode that many people are going to be in, that mindset of waiting for things to change, waiting for something to happen, hoping. Wynberg boys, we're not that. We get up, we pick our eyes up, we engage in the moment, and we're going to move forward and make sure that we stay at the head of that curve and that we are there thriving as we move through and beyond this, and we pull as many of our mates and our community along with us. So on that note, I know it was a little bit serious, but I think times like this probably warrants just that sharing, and hopefully there can be one tiny thing that can help you find your A game, deliver on it, help other people, and navigate the distractions that lie ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those wise words. I know we can all use a positive word in these difficult times. I just wanted to extend one more apology. I understand we are still experiencing technical difficulties with the broadcasting of the videos. For those tuning in live, you will be able to download a much better edited version of this after tonight. We now turn to a much more interactive and I hope entertaining section of the evening. I know that we're about 5 minutes ahead of what I hope will be Cyril Ramaphosa's bombshell that we can all buy booze and cigarettes after this. But we now push ahead into our Q&A section. We are going to be led by Mike Tabiner, the Wynberg Old Boys Head of Communications. For those of you who are on the broadcast live, you can use the Q&A function in Zoom. And as we slowly come to grips with this technological magic, we have already had a few questions come through, which I understand Mike is going to read to us. Please feel free to direct questions to Paddy, Jan, Cedric, or myself. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Paddy. That was an absolutely amazing address. Obviously, great to hear from the principals and from Matt. Had 3 questions in so far, and more coming in here. We're starting with maybe a slightly lighter one because you did say your speech ended or might have been a bit serious. The first question is: are there any on the road kind of incidents that are, and I've added this, safe to share with everyone that's on the call in terms of the tours that you have been on?
All the interesting, the cool ones are so inappropriate, but that's also Wynberg. Inappropriate is cool.
If you keep it PG, I think
Go for okay. Go for it, Ben.
Do you know what? Put him in the spot like that is like there's so many memories, but I'll just tell one little one, and it was quite humorous. So we were getting an absolute pasting in Australia, and I think Australia had got like 500 for 3 or something, and in the test match, Jacques Callis had hurt his hamstring and Vernon Finlander had pulled out, so we were 2 bowlers short. I think they got about 400 in a day. And the next morning when we came together, Morne Morkel shared the story that what he normally does in the evenings, he's a very religious guy, and before he goes to bed, he does his normal prayer. And he actually said, guys, I need to tell you about my prayer last night, because Morne had got a pasting as well as a bowler. And he said, I knelt down to pray as I went to sleep last night. And I said, God, I just want to thank you very much for this day. And actually, no, can I take that back?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's great. So a little bit more serious. What inspired you to write Barefoot Coach? And second part to that, and do you think you have another book in you?
So one of the things that inspired me is all the work that I've really done in cricket in the last 10 years, or so much of this done in the back room, in the background, in one-on-one conversations with people. And I'd had so many people ask me, have you written, will you put this down? And so the main thing was to actually share the knowledge and experiences that I'd been gifted. I won't say they're my knowledge and my experience. It was stuff that I was gifted through awesome opportunities, and it really was an opportunity to share that. And there was also something about the fact that, I was always known as that. People would look at me and, like in India, and they'd say, Rick, I've seen you on TV. You like the fitness trainer or the physio. That oak is always sitting next to an oak that's famous, drinking a cup of coffee. So what do you actually do? So part of that was really just to share and hopefully add value to people out there. And do I have another book in me? Certainly not at the moment. No, I'm not a proper writer. So it took me about 4 times as long as anyone else to write that, about 4 years. So I don't want to go through that again.
Thanks very much. So not another book, but that's okay. I think if you spend a bit more time, you've got time on your hands. You're coaching, you're doing stuff. I'm sure you can write another book.
When they come up with a laptop that you can take out to sea and can float out there, and so between sets when I'm surfing, I can write, then I'll be happy to do it. But
excellent. Here's a question, Mr. De Waal. So just a quick question for you. You spoke a little bit about the fundraising effort around the design thing. Give us a little bit more of an insight into what's gone on behind the scenes around that. I mean, obviously, we had a bit of a technical glitch, so we couldn't watch the video. But maybe a little bit of what's been happening in the background with that facility, and what it's going to look like for 2021.
Okay, right. So the engineering and design faculty was an attempt to build on what used to be a fantastic legacy at Wynberg. I don't know if people are aware of this, but in the 1980s and 1990s, the great majority of engineering students that went to UCT and successfully graduated came from Wynberg. Even so much so that the engineering faculty in the internal rugby league actually used to play in the Wynberg jersey. So that just shows you how many Wynberg boys were actually in the engineering faculty. And we used to have this absolutely magnificent woodwork and metalwork facility, and we used to produce absolutely wonderful, product from there. And the interesting thing was that it wasn't the Doffies that did woodwork and metalwork, which is obviously the sort of normal sort of stereotype that people think, is that people that do technical subjects are academically challenged, and that wasn't the case. If you go and look on the boards in our foyer, a lot of the guys who are on the board over there as having A aggregates, etc., did either woodwork or metalwork. So we had this fantastic legacy, which unfortunately, under the new dispensation, they took away the whole issue of or the ability of schools like Wynberg to offer subjects like woodwork and metalwork. Luckily, the education department saw the error of their ways and actually have reintroduced the ability of schools to offer a few technical subjects, which we took the advantage of. And so we decided that we were going to reintroduce technical subjects, engineering subjects as they call these days, back into Wynberg. Unfortunately, the workshops that we used to have, those had all been converted into classrooms. So we had to reconvert and also add some additional space for particularly workshops and laboratories for the technical subjects, because those obviously had also developed quite a lot since the days of woodwork and metalwork. So that's a little bit of the background about why we reintroduced them. We also believe that the educational offering that is offered at schools at the moment in South Africa is not sufficient. We need technicians, we need people with technical skills in our economy, and that just wasn't happening. So that is why we actually introduced the engineering and design faculty, why we introduced technical subjects. And obviously we have now we are in the process of building the new facility, probably in the end 32 million rand that's going to cost us to build it, and that means retrofitting current classrooms and also adding new facilities. And at the moment we've raised probably about 25 million, and we're just looking to raise the balance so that we can actually finish off the engineering and design faculty, which is going to put Wynberg on a completely different level compared to our other sort of snotty-nosed opposition up the road, who obviously think still that technical work and technical subjects are below their, they're deemed inferior, which is definitely not the case.
Thank you very much. I think that's just in support of that, just a reminder to you guys that are listening, and for the guys who watch us afterwards, there will be that link to the SnapScan, and do make a donation if you haven't already done that. A question to Mr. Poleman. Love putting you guys... Oh, sorry. Yes, no problem. Go for it.
Yeah, at the moment, the people that have donated to this to build the faculty, the donations have been probably between 50,000 and 5 million. So that's where we've got the 24 million that we've got at the moment. And this is an opportunity for people who want to donate less, want to donate something but can't afford those fancy numbers. This is your opportunity. And our Fund a Brick campaign, which we started on Tuesday, has already just topped the 100,000. And I'm looking to get at least 20 times that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come back. So, Mr. Poleman, here's a question. I mean, it was bound to come. Obviously, we're in a very challenging time in terms of COVID. How have you, as headmaster and staff, sort of rallied, and maybe some of the fun stuff in amongst all of that as well? How have you guys rallied within this environment?
Thank you very much. I think that, as I said earlier, I find myself in a very fortunate position with the staff that I have working at Wynberg Boys Junior School, and the will, the will to make things work, the will to keep our boys engaged in a way which is appropriate for them. And sometimes it has been a bit challenging, but we make things work. And you've got to be creative in doing that. So by way of example, our sports department have made little exercise videos and push that out to the boys, challenges. I've been called down to the gym hall to come and do all sorts of exercises and move toilet paper around with my feet and do crunches. But yeah, it's led to me actually being in the gym hall every morning now. And doing a training session with some of the coaching staff, so they're trying to get me into shape. They say I'll have abs by summer, but I think a junior school is a very different dynamic. The staff that we have working there are much more, how can I put this, emotional and in touch with younger boys, but it does lend for an interesting experience as well. But we do have fun and an absolutely amazing environment to work in.
Cool. Paddy, quite a long question for you here, so I'm going to do my best to read this one. And I've just deleted. There we go. I feel that personal development was missing from our years of schooling as a subject. Do you feel there is enough now? Religious. Sorry, just give me a second to get this bigger. Take my glasses off. Thank you. That's good. Yeah, religious-based material out there helped individuals get to their A game, and through personal development that would benefit students and society more. It would possibly be more useful to society if it is introduced as a main subject. Personal development as a main subject within schools, essentially.
So I think that's an excellent question. Should something like personal development be introduced as a subject in school? So for me, the answer, I'm not sure if it should be in school. It's already in school, but it's not as a formal subject. Certainly, if I can answer that, going back to when I was a fitness trainer of the South African cricket team in the 1990s, that was the first time that video analysis and technology and data and science really started coming into professional sport. And what we noticed from about the mid-90s through to about 2005, that sports science, data, technology, etc., really accelerated sports performance. And then round about 2005 to 2010, just depending on the sport, that really plateaued and leveled out. And the contribution of sports science, data, technology to advancing sport was almost just like it was drip feeding, like drops coming out of a tap, where the previous 10 years it was like the tap was open and it was gushing. And even in business now, it's not possible to have a better system, better data, better technology, better analysis. Everyone has availability or access to the best of science. And a change really happened, and I said around that 2005 to 2010 that not many have caught up with, in that the advantage going forward from there, beyond now where science has made its contribution, is now around the soft skills. It's around people. It's the people elements, it's the care factor, it's the empathy. We hear the words culture, and that culture eats strategy for breakfast. We've heard that a hell of a lot of time. Certainly my work that I do in sport now, I don't do any technical work whatsoever when I'm coaching players, because if you want to know how to bowl an in swing or away swing or play a cover drive, you don't need a coach to tell you that. All you need to do is just Google it. YouTube will tell you exactly how to do all that stuff. So the people side of performance, the culture, the teamwork, leadership is what drives that. The soft skills, the personal skills, that really is it is already, and going forward is going to be one of the differentiators between people who really succeed. And I think the concept of calling people skills soft skills is now outdated. That's actually the hard skills, and the hard skills today is actually the really easy stuff.
Thank you. There's two more questions here. One is directed to Jan. Could you please elaborate a little bit more on the new venture with Volunteer with regards Wynberg Online School?
Okay, that's a tricky one, because obviously it's still very much in development. But yes, so I think we need to be very careful to say that there is a partnership between Wynberg Boys and Valencia, because at this particular stage that is all under negotiation. But just to give everybody a bit of background, is Wynberg Boys have, out of our application process and our admissions process, recognized that there is a huge gap, in the sense that we turn away probably 800, 900 boys every year who we'd love to have at Wynberg, and we just do not have enough space for them, in a brick and mortar environment. And because of the whole COVID situation, and people now having to go online and teach remotely and all the rest of it, we've realized that we were actually way ahead of the curve as far as we thought we were. Our teachers and our students are very capable of actually learning online. And we've thought of actually offering another option of having an online school which is affiliated to Wynberg. We're looking at the moment to partner with Valencia, but that is not actually finalized at this particular moment. But what will definitely happen is that Wynberg will have an online option which is open to people that would like to do that.
I think critically that's something that every school should be looking at, because fundamentally education is something we have to be accessing, and anything that we can be doing to be accessing and granting that is something that we have to be applauding. I think it's a
well, thing. Michael, if I can just say something, is that the student population in the Western Cape is growing at around about 13 to 14,000 students. This has been historically over the last 7 or 8 years. Every year we're getting 13 to 14,000 more students enrolling in schools in the Western Cape. And the department has enough money to build 4 schools. So if you can think of that, there are 13,000 additional people. Even if you build schools for 1,200, 1,300 people, we still way short. And where are those students going to go? Where are they going to, gain access to education? So I think online schooling is an absolute, if I can, use a cliche, an absolute no-brainer. The big thing, though, is that it has to be delivered in a way in which the people that are enrolling for that are guaranteed that they are going to get a good product. They are guaranteed that it's sufficiently accredited, and they are guaranteed that it's not going to be some fly-by-night school that's actually going to disappear in a year or two, and the people are going to be left high and dry. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jan. So there's another question. So as things always happen, when you announce it, there's only 2 questions. There's generally 1 or 2 that come flying in. There's another question that's come in, and it is directed back to you, Jan. And I'm going to finish with Paddy, but we're going to let Jan answer this one.
Okay, right. I'm in the firing line, yeah.
Yeah, you are in the firing, but it's a nice one. I promise you. This one is, as you look back on your years as Wynberg, because a bird sort of tweeted in our ears that perhaps you were going to be hanging up the boots at some time quite soon. Looking at those highlights and lowlights, what are the plans for your retirement?
The plans for my retirement is that I'm going to, in whichever form it is, start an online school.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Rest for the wicked. Okay, Paddy, this one was for you. Let me just get to it here quickly. 1 second. This one over here. It is. The question here is, how do you teach the unlearning of bad habits when it is so ingrained already?
Wow. How do you teach the unlearning of bad habits when they're so ingrained already? Well, the first place is to recognize that I have a bad habit that needs to change. So the story I told earlier of the Australian cricket team, they got into a bad habit, but there was no recognition and acknowledgement that this is a bad habit. So recognition is number 1. Number 2 is then to really have the will to go through all the effort of unlearning. And if we've got the will, fortunately there is so much support out there at the moment. There's so much information that there is no shortage of that. So I would say the first 2 steps are the most important ones. Recognize I have a bad habit. I'm doping too much. I'm smoking too much. I'm eating badly. I'm not exercising enough. I'm not spending enough time with the kids. I'm not having enough balance in my life. I'm working too hard. Look in the mirror and face the reality. And fortunately, this time is actually showing up very much the bad habits we got. So recognize your bad habit, and then there needs to be enough of a will to want to overcome that. And at the moment, it's almost forcing us, because if you don't overcome those bad habits and you slip into them, what it might mean is that you're one of those people who treading water, and bad habits is just like treading water with a heavy weight around your ankles. It makes it flippin' difficult. And at the moment, we need to lighten our load so we don't want to be treading water now. We actually want to be swimming and powering forward. So hopefully there's something there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paddy. And gentlemen, that concludes the questions for the evening. Thank you so much for the time. I'm going to hand back to Matthew just to do the final closing.
Well, gentlemen, well done. Thanks. We made it. I think I can say with absolute confidence that we are the best digital dinner in Wynberg's history. And with that, we now conclude. I'd like to take a quick moment to extend my own thanks to our Old Boys Committee and the team that made this possible. As I said earlier, we are in a very well lit stage. We're in a cold hall up here at the school, and I'm standing in front of 4 or 5 very concentrated looking cameramen who've had to deal with a fair amount of technical difficulties for the evening. And I suppose it just wouldn't be 2020 if it all went to plan. I'd like to thank Dave Matfield, the head of events, who has once again burnt all of the midnight oil in ensuring that tonight was a success. Mike Taberner, our head of communications, has lent his professional advice and guidance. Freddie LaRue, head of finance. Damascene Taylor, facilities manager. Adrian Goslet, who I do hope you enjoy in a construction helmet in the EDF video. Thank you all. And finally, a special word of thanks must go to Carol Ramsey, who served as Union Secretary since 2016. Carol has taken early retirement. She has been the face of the Union for many old boys over the years, and we will miss her knowledge and passion. We wish her and her husband all the best as they settle into retirement up in Stilbaai. Again, Jan, Cedric, Paddy, thanks very much for your time and your wise words. Ladies, gentlemen, men of Wynberg, thank you for joining us. We look forward to welcoming you all back home in the not too distant future. Stay safe, stay healthy, and God bless you all. Super Moras.